Hey, thanks for clicking on this video. Today we're diving into a shocking story from 1968 in England, where folks were stunned by the discovery of a little kid's body. After a super confusing investigation, guess what? The killer turned out to be an 11-year-old girl. Yep, you heard that right. This is the dark tale of Mary Bell, the youngest serial killer in England. Imagine her as a reality show star on Survivor Serial Killer Edition. But instead of surviving, she just caused chaos in her community. Grab some popcorn because we're about to dive into a story darker than your average family drama. Mary Bell was born on May 26, 1957, in Northumberland, England. Her mom, Elizabeth Betty Bell, was a sex worker. Mary was the second child Elizabeth had when she was just 17 years old. Mary never knew who her biological dad was, but she believed it was William Billy, because her mom wouldn't spill the beans on who her real dad was. Mary thought her mom was hiding his identity on purpose. She got this rumor from her older sister, who said that Mary's dad was probably William Billy, a notorious alcoholic and criminal in their neighborhood. Mary figured that criminal blood from William was running through her veins. From the get-go, Mary Bell's life was full of suffering. Her aunt, Isa McCricket, once heard her mom scream, "Get this baby away from me," right after Mary was born, because she knew who had gotten her pregnant, William Billy. Since she was little, Mary dealt with injuries and strange incidents, including physical abuse from her own mom. I can't even wrap my head around how a mom could treat her toddler so cruelly. It's just heartbreaking. Some family members even believed that Elizabeth was trying to harm Mary repeatedly. In 1960, Elizabeth purposely dropped baby Mary out of a window, and on another occasion, she gave her an overdose of sleeping pills. In fact, Elizabeth even deliberately sold little Mary. This made Mary's sister, Ketrin, want to run away with Mary and get her away from their mom. Unfortunately, Elizabeth never let Mary go. She kept Mary right by her side. According to reports from the New York Times, Elizabeth forced Mary to serve clients a few times. Mary was dragged into her mom's work when she was only around 4 years old. Another traumatic event for Mary was when she witnessed her little friend running alongside her, only to be killed by a bus right in front of her eyes. Growing up with all these horrifying experiences, Mary turned into a different person. She became manipulative and often lied. As a kid, Mary was really good at hiding her emotions. At school, her behavior was sometimes off the charts. She often got into fights with boys and even tried to choke some of her classmates a few times. Slowly, Mary's friends started to distance themselves, and many were scared of her. They noticed that whenever Mary gave someone a piercing glare, it usually meant an unprovoked attack was coming. After that stare, Mary would chase down and hurt whichever friend she had in her sights. This is why the other kids kept their distance from her, except for one girl named Norma Joyce. Norma was Mary's close neighbor. She was the only one willing to hang out with Mary all the time. They often played together, both at school and around their homes. Unknowingly, Mary and Norma became inseparable best friends. But behind their friendship, it was clear that Mary had been through some tough times since she was born. Her mom, Elizabeth, didn't want Mary around, but at the same time, she refused to give Mary up for adoption to her relatives. This was because her family felt sorry for Mary when they saw Elizabeth being abusive toward her. A lot of people say this is a heartbreaking case. From various criminal records, one of the main factors that can lead someone to have issues later on is a rough childhood. Usually, if a kid goes through trauma between the ages of 0 to 10, there's a good chance they'll grow up to be troubled individuals, even criminals, as adults. But Mary's case is particularly concerning. It's super clear that her family environment heavily influenced her actions. But hey, we all know there isn't a parenting handbook teaching people how to be good parents in England back then. If there was, it would probably be a bestseller. Lots of data from major criminal cases, like Jeffrey Dahmer, Baikuni in Indonesia, or other serial killers, including Mary Bell, show that most of them had childhoods filled with pressure and violence. Heavy trauma in childhood seems to be a key factor shaping their personalities into becoming criminals. So let's break down Mary Bell's case chronologically. On Saturday, May 11, 1968, a 3-year-old boy was found lost near Margaret Slot. After meeting the police, he shared what had happened. He said he was playing with other kids, including Mary and Norma, in an abandoned area when one of them pushed him off a cliff, causing serious head injuries that bled a lot. That same night, 3 mothers reported that their kids had been choked by Mary and Norma while playing together. The police immediately called Mary and Norma in for questioning. What's funny is that Mary denied all the incidents like she was explaining an unfinished school assignment, while Norma just confessed to everything like it was no big deal. And the police were left scratching their heads. How can an 11-year-old already be an expert at manipulating situations like a seasoned politician? Seriously, with a story like this, who's really better at this, kids or the cops? There weren't any special actions from the police. They thought the incident was just a regular accident while playing, because, kids will be kids, right? The cops were like, oh, they're just little kids, there's no way they can think that far ahead. But who would have guessed? Turns out, that was just a warm-up for Mary. The police were so chill, it was like they thought, oh, it's probably just some kids messing around. They'll be fine by tomorrow. If only they knew. Mary's game was on a whole different level, more like serial killer in the making. Then, on May 25, 1968, right before Mary's 11th birthday, a horrific tragedy struck. Mary Bell choked a 4-year-old kid named Martin Brown. Martin was found dead in an empty house in Scotswood, England. The police only found a little blood and saliva on Martin's face, with no clear evidence left behind. Mary choked him with one grip, so there were no marks left. At the scene, the police found a bottle of painkillers on the floor near Martin's body. They thought, oh, maybe Martin accidentally took these pills. You know how kids are. They probably thought it was candy. But wait, who keeps candy in a pill bottle, right? Even though they thought that, they still felt they had to investigate further. Maybe this time they were starting to realize, something seems off here. How can a little kid be that careless? Mary quickly went back and excitedly told Norma about what she had done, like some sort of kid version of venting about her criminal troubles. Norma, who missed the incident, could only stare in shock. 2 days later, they were at it again, but this time not with actions, but with a little vandalism art. They vandalized the kindergarten facilities and left some anonymous notes. Imagine creepy kid scribbles, like the doodles of a doctor who's been up all night. In those notes, they claimed to be the ones who hurt Martin and, even better, promised to do it again. But the police? Oh, they just shrugged and chuckled. This must just be kids playing around, they thought. Seriously, they really didn't see it coming, did they? Who would believe that 2 kids under 11 could be real criminals? But here we are, witnessing just how magical the police's ability to underestimate can be. It's said that Mary stopped by Martin Brown's house before his funeral. In her innocent little way, the classic Mary innocence, she asked to see Martin in the coffin. Martin's mom, still grieving hard, quickly said, "Oh, absolutely not," while thinking, this kid is such a troublemaker, always causing drama and creating chaos in the neighborhood instead of playing with dolls. So without any small talk, Mary got kicked out of the house. But that's not where the story ends. Mary proudly bragged to her school friends, "Hey, guess what? I'm the one who hurt Martin." The kids who heard it were horrified. Some believed her, while others thought, oh man, Mary's just lying like she usually does. But funny enough, the police didn't pick up on this at all. It seemed like there was some sort of secret connection between the kids. They got each other's kid talk, but the adults, especially the cops, they were too busy thinking, nah, there's no way a little kid could do that. At this point, everyone still saw Mary as just a little girl with a wild imagination, when she had already dropped some major hints about her cruelty. Then on July 31st, 1968, 2 months after the Martin tragedy, Mary and Norma were at it again, and this time, Norma got in on the action by hurting a 3-year-old boy named Brian Howe. Brian died from being choked until he couldn't breathe. But like a kid taking playtime too seriously, Mary didn't stop there. She went on to get creative by mutilating Brian's body, separating some of his body parts like a horror-themed DIY project, and carving the letter M on Brian's stomach, like it was a signature on her art piece. Creepy, right? Brian's family finally realized he was missing and rushed to find him. Unfortunately, they couldn't locate him anywhere. Eventually, they asked the neighbors for help. What made it even more absurd? Mary and Norma innocently offered their help too. Just picture these two kids joining the search while hiding a huge secret. I wonder if they were thinking, let's hope nobody finds our handiwork. But then, by chance, Brian's little body was discovered in a horrific state. This tragedy sent shockwaves through Scotswood because the condition of Brian's body was far from normal. It looked more like a scene from a real horror movie. The police worked hard to find the culprit, but you guessed it, no leads. Honestly, at this point, two things keep popping into my head. Is Mary just way too smart, or are the cops just way too chill? Maybe since the culprit was a kid, the police thought, nah, no way a little kid could be a serial killer. But that's what makes this case even more unpredictable, like playing a guessing game with all the clues totally off. If it was an adult behind this, they would have been caught ages ago. But dealing with a kid? The cops might as well be playing chess with their eyes closed.
Don't miss this exciting story. Watch this video until the end to get all the surprising detail. If you enjoy the content, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. That way you won't miss out on any other interesting videos. Join our community and enjoy various exciting stories every week.
So, why am I thinking like this? Here's the deal. First, on May 11, 1968, 4 kids told their mom what happened, and she immediately reported it to the police. So the police got the report that Mary had hurt 4 little kids. But what was the result? Nothing. The cops were probably thinking, it's just kids, they're probably just playing around. Then the second incident happened on May 25, 1968, when Martin died because of Mary. Mary casually wrote a note confessing that she was the one who did it. The police found the note but just thought it was a joke. Maybe they were like, oh, this must be a prank from some kids who just watched a comedy show. The third incident went down on July 31, 1968, when Brian died because of Mary, and they found the letter M on his body. But the police were still struggling to figure out who did it. I mean, there was an M on Brian's body pointing right at Mary. Maybe the cops were too busy thinking about what to have for lunch to notice the super obvious evidence. Honestly, I'm confused listening to this story about the police's actions. It feels like watching a horror movie where everyone runs into the house when there's a killer outside. We're all shouting, "Run, you idiots! The door! Don't open it!" But they're just gathering at the door like they want to take a selfie. Anyway, let's move on to the part where Mary finally gets caught because her weird behavior starts raising suspicions. And I'm sure this time the police won't say, oh, it's just a little kid. When Brian was buried, Mary was spotted hiding outside her house, laughing hysterically. People who saw her thought, wow, Mary's lost it. She must have just escaped from a mental hospital. This happened when Brian's coffin was lowered into the ground, and it looked like Mary felt like she was at a rock concert instead of being in the middle of a tragedy. This tragedy became the hot topic around town. People were way more interested in talking about Mary's weird behavior than Brian's death. Maybe they thought, death is sad, but Mary's antics? That's what's hilarious. Over 100 detectives were assigned to investigate this case, and more than 1,200 kids were interrogated by the police. It felt like watching a detective show on TV, where kids were being asked questions more than being told to go play hide and seek. This case wasn't just grabbing the cops' attention. It turned into a big social drama with Mary as the star of the show. On August 1st, the police questioned Mary and Norma, but neither of them gave any important info during the interview. When the investigators did a second round of questioning, they noticed something weird. Mary claimed she saw an 8-year-old boy hitting Brian and carrying a broken pair of scissors, acting all strange around the spot where Brian was found. Maybe Mary thought, well, if I'm going to be asked, I might as well come up with a cool story, right? The investigators were totally shocked by Mary's statement and started to suspect her even more. The reason? Only the investigators and the perpetrator knew about the broken scissors at the crime scene. All those gruesome details were kept secret from the press and the public. At this point, the investigators realized there was no way an 11-year-old like Mary could know such tiny details. The answer was clear. The culprit in Brian's tragedy was Mary Bell. It seems like Mary was better at crafting a plot than a soap opera scriptwriter. Mary and Norma were grilled even more by the investigators, and they both started crying hysterically, blaming each other. But Mary, being quick with her words, took control of the situation, manipulating and navigating the police interrogation like a talented lawyer. Seriously, she could sell ice cream in Antarctica. Every day, Mary faced pressure from her parents, so for her, the police interrogation felt like a kid's game. She cried, not because she felt guilty, but because she saw sweet little Norma blaming her. Maybe she was thinking, "Why can't you be a bit more dramatic, Norma?" In August, Norma, accompanied by her parents, gave her statement to the police. Poor Norma, so naive, felt totally helpless in a stressful situation. It was like she had just been asked to audition for a horror movie and had no idea how to act. Back then, investigative techniques weren't as advanced or scary as they are now. The police hadn't fully realized that the culprit could actually be kids. They probably thought, kids! They can only break toys, not lives. Cases like this were super rare, so they still believed that kids were innocent beings who only made messes at school, not criminals. Maybe if there had been more experienced cops on the case, they would have been more aware. But at that time, they were probably more focused on figuring out who stole the cookies from the kitchen than considering the possibility that the little miss could be the criminal. Yeah, because in their eyes, kids were better suited for drawing with crayons than committing crimes. Norma confessed to everything she did with Mary to Brian. She explained how Mary strangled Brian and even told the police exactly where the broken scissors used to cut Brian's stomach were hidden. All the details in her statement matched up with the crime scene and the victim's body. On August 5th, Mary was brought in by the police again for questioning. At that time, Mary was super defensive and didn't admit to any of the accusations against her. Forensic examination showed that the clothing fibers found at the crime scene matched Mary's clothes, and the same fibers were also found on Martin Brown's body. Finally, Mary and Norma were arrested and charged in court. The police had enough evidence to prove that Mary was the culprit. I think kids around 11 years old or younger usually can't lie well. It's a skill that needs to be learned. If they practice, they can get better at it. Norma eventually admitted her part in it because honestly, she just wasn't good at lying. While Mary, when questioned by the police, was super defensive and wouldn't own up to anything. The police had to provide solid evidence to show that Mary was the one who did it. I believe Mary could be defensive and lie because she had been lying for a long time. She learned to lie because, as we know, she was raised by a mom who often neglected her. Maybe lying was the only way for Mary to avoid getting hurt by her mom. So naturally, Mary, being a pro at lying, kept doing it even during her police interrogation. Now let's see what happened to Mary and Norma after they got arrested. On December 5th, 1968, Mary and Norma were tried in court where they also underwent psychological evaluations. The test results showed a stark personality contrast between the two. Mary was smart and sly, while Norma was more of a follower. It was like one was a genius criminal and the other was the sidekick who always lagged behind. 4 psychiatrists were shocked when they evaluated Mary and stated that she wasn't mentally ill. She just had a psychopathic personality. You can imagine how confused they were, like seeing a smart student in class who always cheats on tests. In the end, Mary was sentenced to 12 years in prison, while Norma was let off the hook just because she didn't commit any violence and was more of a follower. Maybe she was just thinking, oh, Mary has a better plan, why not just go along with it? Mary was then held at Durham Prison, but it seemed more like a rehabilitation program for psychopaths. I mean, instead of getting a regular cell, she probably had spa-like facilities with psychological guidance. In May 1980, at 23 years old, Mary was released and given a new identity to start a fresh life. So it wasn't really prison. It was more like a life reset program, and we all know how hard it is to reset your life when you've started off in a very, very wrong way. The authorities kept Mary and her partner's identities a secret, and as soon as she got out of prison, she got married right away. On May 25th, 1984, Mary gave birth to a daughter, and her daughter's identity was kept super tight under wraps. It was like Mary thought, if I can't be a movie star, at least I can have a kid whose identity is more secretive than a spy. No one knew about Mary's dark past, not even her daughter. Until 1998, when her daughter finally found out the truth about Mary Bell. Once their identities were revealed, Mary's family became the target of journalists, as if they were new Hollywood stars, but with a horror movie script. They were like the guests on a 90s talk show, but instead of sharing inspirational stories, they were just there to be the subject of gossip as suspicious criminals. Everyone was suspicious of Mary and her past, so the authorities and local government had to move Mary's family to a new place. Kind of like trying to shuffle a deck of cards that's already been revealed. I mean, who wants to live next door to a former serial killer? Every time there was a knock at the door, people probably thought, oh no, please don't let that be the freed criminal. In 2003, Mary won an appeal in the High Court regarding her family's anonymity. The authorities agreed to keep Mary's family and descendants' identities hidden for life. Can you imagine? Her life was now more mysterious than a thriller movie plot. In 2009, Mary's granddaughter was born, and her identity was only referred to as a girl named Z. Maybe that was because they didn't want to make the same mistake again. Z is a pretty safe name, right? Like a code name for a secret agent or something. As of now, Mary's whereabouts and identity are still unknown to the public. This identity protection was granted directly by an order from the UK High Court. So her medical identity is basically changed and kept secret from the public, meaning if she goes to the doctor, she might register as Mary the missing ex-criminal. In my view, Mary's childhood was marked by her mom's harsh treatment, which clearly affected her criminal behavior and led to tragic consequences. But Mary's crimes weren't fueled by revenge, jealousy, or any other evil traits. Instead, they came from her childish nature and excessive curiosity. As Mary grew up, she served her time and started realizing that her past was filled with darkness, lies, and unimaginable criminal acts. After going through the legal process, it seems like Mary didn't want to be bad anymore. She tried to protect her family and her name from her past, hoping they could still change their future. Kind of like switching the TV channel from crime news to comedy. That's why the adult Mary asked for anonymity or a new identity so she could start a fresh life. Like someone trying to wipe all their digital footprints after watching some cringy videos from their past. On the flip side, a lot of people were against giving Mary and her family anonymity. They argued that Mary Bell and her family didn't deserve a new identity or anonymity, considering the crimes she committed as a kid. Like they were saying, you can't just change your last name like it's a soap brand. What do you think about Mary Bell's case? Drop your thoughts in the comments. That was the horrifying case of the 11-year-old girl named Mary Bell. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the I Felt the Dark channel. See you in the next video, where we'll talk about things scarier than math homework.